Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay with us as the Suns get set to shine.
Here's Perry, to Gar Hurd. Here's the jump shot.
Comes to Marley, a long three. He got it! He got it! Into Booker. Here's the three. Suzanne! Oliver, Sir Charles, and he flies in for a wham, bam, slam. Whammo time! He got it! Suzanne! Oh, brother!
Welcome to the 7 Seconds or Less podcast. This is a podcast about the NBA with a Phoenix Suns focus. My name is Max McCauley, and I'm joined as always by my co-host. His name is David Nash. David, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, Max. Another bad week as a Suns fan, but I'm happy to be back talking about it with you and a guest this week.
Yeah, we have a guest again. It's been a little while. Our guest today is one of the hosts of the excellent podcast, The Timeline, which has started sort of around the same time as our pod. It's like our brother podcast, I might say. He is a moderator on the Phoenix Suns Reddit, which I'm sure many of you participate in. He is at I'm Pat Burke on Twitter, which is just a fantastic handle. His name is Mike Vigil. Mike, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, guys. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. I love your podcast. I guested on it. It's awesome. Everyone should check it out. So, yeah, we're excited to talk a little basketball with you.
I'm excited, too.
This is going to be the first of a series of podcasts we're going to be doing throughout the year. It's going to be our award podcasts. If you listen to Dunked On, kind of similar to that, we're going to be doing but more of a Suns-focused thing. We're going to be doing not like the main season awards, but kind of like our own tailored awards for the Suns monthly. So this month it'll be for the October games, which, as David alluded to, weren't the greatest things that ever happened in our lives, but there were a couple good games in there. And then we'll do a little bit of around the league awards. We're going to each invent our own awards for the teams around the league that have been playing maybe slightly better than the Suns have. But before we get into that, though, guys, Tyson Chandler, it was just reported, is going to be bought out and join the Lakers. Mike, I'll start with you. What are your initial reactions on that? It's
hilarious. It's hilarious that the Lakers fans are actually excited for Tyson Chandler to join their team. God. I can't believe that they're excited about it. This is just a reminder to me that other than Suns fans, nobody watches the Suns. Because if anybody around the league actually watched the Suns, they would know that Tyson Chandler is not a good addition to your team. Now, obviously, there's no way to measure how good of a locker room teammate he is, but I mean, the Suns, they averaged 21 wins in the last 3 seasons? That's
a pretty good measurement.
Yeah. How good of a locker room teammate could he be in those cases? I'm not sad to see the team without him. We'll say that because he's been so bad over the last the first 8 games of the season, basically. He's been really bad. So I'm not sad to see him go. He seemed like a nice guy, and I wish all the best for him, but I'm not sad to see him go.
David, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump on the back of a lot of what Mike said there. I think there is a pretty clear, history where we can say he's not the greatest influence in the locker room. He's certainly not a negative one, but I don't think he brings a lot of the positives that maybe in theory you think he brings to a team like the Suns or the Lakers. He shouldn't have been playing at the start of the season. He was out of the rotation the last game, so we're not going to miss him from that standpoint. Being the cap roster nerd that I am, it certainly is intriguing to me that we now have a roster spot, which we probably could have done with a couple of months ago, Max.
Yeah, we really could have.
But yeah, it's interesting for me that there's a spot there now, so what they do, and the bigs behind Ayton are kind of thin now, I suppose. As much as we didn't want to see Chandler on the court, there's more minutes for Holmes now, and maybe this is how we see Bender get on the court every now and then, because there's really no third big, at least at the moment, behind those big guys if foul trouble comes into play.
Yeah, that's a nice point that I hadn't thought of. This actually might mean some minutes for Bender. I just want to point out that Zach Lowe tweeted after this happened that LA has secretly not been panicking about their center situation because they knew they could get a buyout guy. LA, keep panicking. Keep panicking. Just look at his on-off. Dude, I know the Suns are bad. They've been minus 32.6 with him on the court, and their on-off is minus 25.4 with him. Those numbers are like astronomically bad. You don't find those numbers. He's just, every time he's come in the game, listen, the Suns aren't winning these games anyway, especially without Booker, but every time he's come in the game, it's just been, like, the team has just fallen off entirely. It's been a sieve on defense. Like, he doesn't do anything. So listen, maybe there's an argument he just hasn't been trying. Maybe he knew this was coming and just didn't really give a shit. Maybe. But from my eyes, I see a guy who's washed up and can't help a team. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, it'd be really nice if we could get Alan Williams back somehow, that's for sure, because that would have been a nicer third big anyway. I mean, Tyson Chandler didn't provide much. At least Alan Williams provided that energy on the bench and then rebounding when he was on the court. But one thing I think is going to be interesting going forward is we get to see whose fault is it that Tyson Chandler wasn't converting on those lobs? Because we can say it was the guard's fault for the Suns, and it likely was partially. But now we're going to see maybe LeBron James throwing those lobs, and can Tyson Chandler still get up and get them? I doubt it.
I think it was gravity's fault. I don't think it was anyone else's fault.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a fair amount of evil stare downs from LeBron to Tyson Chandler. If he plays. And by the way, he might not play. I could really see Chandler not play and just be like a locker room guy for them. Yeah. And I could also see Chandler actually, trying to be a locker room guy for them. It seems like he had given up on this team. It really has. I don't think he gave any effort here. Maybe he'll give a little more when he's with LeBron in LA under the lights. We'll see. But you can't be excited about this if it's a Laker fan. Like, the upside of this is just that he's not like completely detrimental. That's the upside.
Absolutely.
I agree, Max. And Woj just tweeted that he was increasingly frustrated with the Suns. So yeah, maybe we see a rejuvenated Tyson back in LA, which is his home as well, by the way. But I plan to touch on Tyson a little later, so I won't touch too much more on his on-court negativity, Max.
My guess is that he's going to have one amazing game, his first game. He'll put everything he has in that one game, and everyone will call his son stupid for cutting him. And then he'll be sucky for the rest of the season, and no one will pay attention to that. So that's what's going to happen. David, do you want to run down what the Suns have done lately before we get into the awards?
Yeah, so since we recorded last week, Max, we have a loss to Memphis, 96-117, a loss at OKC, 110-117. We lost, of course, to the Spurs at home, which was a very disappointing 30-point blowout, 90-120. And then a much better effort with Devin Booker back against Toronto at home, 98-107. That leaves us 1-7 currently, guys, and last in both our division and the conference, which is a little depressing.
Particularly the last in the division part, because we kind of hoped we were better than the Kings, and the Kings are 6-3, so we are not better than the Kings, at least not yet.
They're frisky, Max. They're very frisky.
All right, let's get into our first award here. So as I said, we're going to do sort of a modified version of the season-long awards on a monthly basis. Our first award is going to be the Sixth Man of the Year award, but it's not really the Sixth Man of the Year award. We consider the whole bench to be important on this team because, there's not a lot of talent. So we're instead just going to ask, who should be playing more based on what we've seen so far? Who is Igor not playing enough? And the way we'll do this, we'll all give our answers, and then we'll let Mike explain first. But Mike, go ahead and give your answer, and we'll go around.
This one was hard. First of all, when I first read it as Sixth Man of the Year, I was like, "Oh no, we have no depth." But it's got to be Mikal Bridges.
I'm going with Rashawn Holmes, which I put down before the recent Tyson Chandler news. But yeah, he's my nomination, Max.
Very prescient. Mine's DeAnthony Melton. So let's start with you, Mike. Why should Mikal Bridges be playing more?
Here's the first thing. I took every lineup the Suns have played so far this season. I filtered by minutes to see the top 20 lineups by minutes played. And out of those top 20 lineups, I sorted by plus minus to see the best net ratings of all the lineups the Suns have. And out of the top 10 lineups, Mikal Bridges is in the top 8. So far for net rating, Mikal Bridges is in the top. Now, of course, he's playing against bench players, so he's not playing against the toughest competition. But it's clear that he has a positive impact on the court. And the other thing, too, is for a lot of the guys on the court right now, we need to see effort because effort tends to inspire effort. That's why I miss Shaquille Harrison so much. Whether or not he was a net positive always in the actual things that he was doing, he did inspire a lot of effort from other guys around him. And Mikal Bridges seems to be one of those guys. So I think it makes a lot of sense that he was in all those top lineups as far as just from the eye test. And then, the stats seem to bear that out as well.
David, what do you think about Mikal?
I love Mikal. He is going to come up in one of my other awards, so I won't extend too much on what Mike said, other than the fact that I think we can pretty much throw the rookie excuse out the window. As Mike said, he's a positive on the court right now when, a lot of other guys aren't. So let's stop with the we don't want to play him too much because he's a rookie, because I think he's already proven that he's a pretty solid guy out there that you can count on. So yeah, I definitely agree that we need to see more Mikal Bridges going forward, Max.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement too. I guess the way I'd phrase it and the way I'd put it is like, what is Ryan Anderson giving you that Mikal Bridges isn't giving you right now? So I don't think it's anything, and Mikal Bridges is just a clearly better defender.
How about really bad step back, Z-grade Dirk Nowitzki fadeaways?
That's a great point. He's not giving you that, but Mikal Bridges did airball a pull-up mid-range jumper yesterday, so that's pretty Ryan Anderson-esque. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I think pretty much all Suns fans agree. Mikal Bridges should be playing more. I understand that Igor's trying to ease the rookies in and play the vets, but at this point, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that when he's one of your best 5 players. Just play the guy. David, let's get into Richaun Holmes a little bit.
Yeah, I won't go too in depth because we've already touched on Tyson a little bit here, and now the minutes are open. It's his minutes to lose, and he doesn't have a lot of competition, as we said. So, my notes here is that kind of trading for him wasn't making a hell of a lot of sense right now, and until the last game against Toronto, and now this buyout with Chandler. I think his lack of defense and some silly mistakes at times maybe made him unplayable in Igor's eyes. But now with this Tyson news, maybe the Suns were just pushing Tyson out there to get a buyer. Maybe include him in a trade or get someone to bite for him to then take the buyout. So I'm excited going forward with Holmes now because, the backup role is there for him. He brings that energy that Mike was talking about before. He brings that hustle that's contagious. And I low-key like his passing too. I think, with Ayton going out of the lineup, you can kind of play a similar way with Holmes on the court because he's got, some underrated passing instincts, Max.
Yeah, he's just alive. You can actually see some life in his legs. Unlike Tyson Chandler. I think I tweeted, after 1 minute of Richaun Holmes coming in, he was just obviously better than Tyson Chandler. It was clear.
There was one lob, I remember, that they threw up to Richaun Holmes, and he didn't, I think it was a Booker pass. Richaun didn't complete it. I know you guys know the one I'm talking about, but Richaun went up and got it, brought it back down, and then went up and put it in. And I swear, I would have passed out if Tyson Chandler caught that exact same pass. It's impossible. So to see Richaun Holmes do that, it was a breath of fresh air.
Not only catch it, but also bounce back up. I don't think Tyson's capable of a second jump with this.
And an interesting contrast to the Tyson Chandler one that was in my errors video the other day, guys, where Kanan tried to throw him a lob and he basically, was halfway out of bounds by the time he caught it. And then instead of just taking it out of bounds, he threw it back to Memphis to run the fast break. So, yeah, I think we got a safer pair of hands in Holmes on those lobs at least.
If they were trying to showcase Tyson for other teams, no, that didn't work. All right, I'll go ahead and go into mine. Mine's DeAnthony Melton. No secret that I love the guy. They just assigned him to the Northern Arizona Suns. I think that's probably a good solution if they're not going to play him because he should be playing somewhere. I think it makes more sense to play him than Okobo just because I don't think Okobo really helps you on either end right now. He's probably a little better in offense, but still not really helping you. Whereas I think Melton would be one of the best defenders on the team kind of immediately. So I wish he were playing more. I don't think he's going to be anytime soon. Mike, any thoughts on DeAnthony Melton?
So when I was researching this category, what I did is I made a list of players that I just thought looked like they gave a shit. And Booker and Ayton were the two first, obviously. Holmes, Warren, Bridges, and Okobo. And then I actually put Kanan on this list because he looks mortally wounded every time Booker misses an obvious three-point shooter. And then I Melton was the last guy that I was like, oh, do I put Melton on this list or not? Because we really haven't seen a lot of him. Now, I do think it's funny to complain about really bad defense and then not play your best defenders. That drives me crazy. We clearly have one guy who's a good defender. It would be nice to see him at least get a few minutes. The problem with Melton is I just haven't seen the passing yet. And I just would like to see his ability to move the ball. Now, it would be nice if we had a guy who could just get to the rim regularly. And, of course, he's got that new jump shot that we got to see through Summer League. And that's why I think it's nice that he's going to get some minutes for the NAZ Suns because maybe he can get some more work on that jump shot in actual game time. But I really like him, and I think he needs to get more minutes. And I think it's coming, to be honest. I just don't think it's going to be too long of playing Kanan, even though he looked pretty good in that Raptors game.
Yeah, I agree, and I think both of what you've mentioned in terms of the G League assignment is really important here, because I think Melton trying to really impress Igor in limited spot minutes may be likely when the game's already done, or the pressure's really on to try and turn the game around. That's not very conducive to developing a guy and hoping that he impresses you. So I think actually going and spending extended minutes with the Naz Suns might be the best way for Melton to actually fight his way into the lineup, kind of show that he can run a team, fill out the box score and kind of stuff it a little bit in a few games, which might get the coach's attention and get him in. The other thing that I'd say, and it probably touches on Mike's point with the passing, is I'd actually like to see him eventually in the lineup with other point guards. Because if that's kind of his biggest deficiency right now, as we said, he brings some other pretty great things to a team that this Suns team definitely needs. So if they're a little worried about his playmaking, if you can get him in with some other guys and maybe even Booker, that's where he'll really shine, I think.
Yeah, you guys are probably right. I mean, he should be playing probably in the Northern Arizona Suns unit. One thing people forget about Melton is he didn't get to play college basketball last year, so he just needs to play basketball. He just needs to get back in the rhythm of it. It makes sense for him to play there. I just love him so much and want to see him play, so I'm being selfish. Okay, let's move on to the next award. This is the DPOY, which is obviously the Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA, but because the Suns don't play defense, we're not going to award a Defensive Player of the Year. We're going to award the most disappointing player of the month. Mike, you start and we'll go around here.
I think it's got to be Josh Jackson. I guess happiness is a function of expectations, as the great Jalen Rose said, but it has to be Josh Jackson.
David?
I alluded to before, Tyson Chandler for me.
Thank God he's gone. I also have Josh. So let's focus this conversation on Josh, because Tyson we talked about enough, I think. Mike, why is Josh the most disappointing? And then David, you follow up with why you agree or disagree.
Well, I think it's difficult. It's been difficult so far for him to find what his role is on this team. I think during the preseason and during training camp, they talked a lot about his playmaking, and that just hasn't bared out. We haven't seen it. He's averaging significantly more turnovers than assists so far, and it's just been difficult. I will say that I'm actually not that worried about it. I've actually seen a lot of people sort of panicking about Jackson so far, and I don't feel that way just yet. I think that just with the way the team is built, it's going to take a little bit of time for him to find his role. And if it doesn't happen by the end of the season, maybe we can start to get worried. But even then, I think Jackson's a bit of a project, and we have to kind of be patient with him. Whether or not he'll succeed, I don't really know. I think that the more and more I watch him play, the less likely I think it is. But I think it's possible. Now, I will say, though, I did consider Igor Kokoshkov for this category.
David's going to kick you off the podcast.
Yeah, well, let me explain first. I'll say he was close to winning this before the Toronto game. In the Toronto game, I thought he actually did an excellent job. But I do want to say I tend to think people criticizing rotations this early in the season need to chill a little bit, calm down. Every couch coach forgets that team chemistry and morale matter, and they always talk about lineups as if players are sort of inanimate chess pieces that don't have opinions and thoughts. Playing the vets does make sense early, and giving them more than a few games to see if they're washed up or to see if they're just in a slump, that does make sense as well. It's important to show the players that are on the team that if they've proven it in the past, that they're allowed to actually perform rather than being yanked right away. But if nothing changed as of that Toronto game, I think I would have been pretty frustrated. So it's been nice to see that Tyson was benched. Obviously, he's gone now. Anderson was benched. Okobo played more. McHale played more. I would say I'm in the not worried about Igor corner, but it was a little frustrating of a start.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think, the way you summed it up is pretty perfect, Mike, is there were some disappointing things from Igor, but, we can't forget the fact that he is a rookie coach that's been dealt a pretty awful hand and then some extra bad luck on top of that. So I think your point about the Toronto game is important. It ties in with kind of why I wasn't panicking is we needed Booker back. Everything is just so much easier down the line when you slot Booker into the rotation. So let's watch this space on that one going forward. I certainly expect things to be a little easier for Igor when Booker is back with the team full time. But I think Josh was the obvious choice here. I think he's hurt the team the most. I kind of expected both of you to mention his name in this category, which is why I threw up Tyson, just because I think he, hurt the team in even less minutes than someone like Josh. I think the funny thing, the only thing that I'll bring up with Tyson here is he was averaging 8.5 fouls per 36 minutes, which is just ridiculous. But back on Josh, he was really hurting the team, and I think Max and I are pretty much on the same page here in terms of him needing a real role change, which I think ties into what Mike was mentioning too, Max, around just trying to really find him a spot in this rotation that he can focus on. I think one thing that we forget with Josh, he's kind of been in and out of the starters. He's always the first guy pulled in when there's an injury. Then he's back to the bench. He just hasn't been able to settle. And, he only played 11 minutes in that Toronto game, but was pretty effective in those minutes. So, maybe that's the role for him going forward, to just come in and be a spark plug off the bench. What do you think, Max?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add on Josh, because I totally agree with that, and I've made that clear on this podcast many times. People think I'm crazy because I say Josh Jackson needs to start. It's not because I think he deserves to start. I think it's just he just desperately needs to be in a smaller role next to players who are better than him, so he won't, have the ultimate green light, because that's what's killing him right now. But I'm not gonna labor that, because I'd rather respond to some of the Igor stuff as one of his rotation criticizers. Here's the thing: I know he's been dealt a very bad hand. His team sucks. He's got a really bad roster. He doesn't have very many good options. But he's picking the worst options, in my opinion. I understand playing the vets, but you just cannot play Ryan Anderson, Tyson Chandler, and Jamal Crawford together. You just can't. And obviously he's not doing that anymore because Tyson's gone, and he didn't do it in Toronto. But against San Antonio, he closed the first quarter and started the second quarter with those three. And as David made very clear with his little on our podcast Twitter, he posted a video of 7 plays of them. Didn't go well, which is pretty predictable. You just can't do that. Those are your 3 worst players. They're your vets. You knew they were going to kill you. You've got to be better than that, Igor. I understand it's a rookie coach figuring things out, but that's pretty predictable. You can't sink your team like that. That's kind of how I feel about it.
I can't argue with that. The only thing I would say is, every time one of us has criticized him and noticed something wrong with the rotation, either the very next game or when they get back home after a couple of days rest, there's a pretty positive change that has been made to the lineup. So definitely something worth watching going forward. And maybe in another 10 games time, we'll have the perfect rotation in our eyes. And a little frustrating that it may have taken that long. But as you alluded to before, it's hard to know what's going on behind the scenes. And as Mike said, you kind of have to remember the human element to being a coach as well.
Yeah.
Imagine being a rookie coach and then not being able to trust your veterans. That's a weird place to be. I mean, when you first start out as a coach, you think, okay, if these young guys, they can't figure it out, if they're having trouble, well, I'll put the vets in, and then the vets can kind of stabilize things. That's been the opposite case so far. And there wasn't a lot of predicting that, other than maybe Jamal Crawford and Tyson Chandler. But Ryan Anderson and Trevor Ariza, there was reasons to believe that they would be sort of a stabilizing presence on the court. But so far, no. So that's a rough place to be as a rookie coach.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's obvious that Jamal Crawford was foisted on Igor. That's what James Jones wanted. That's pretty clear. Mm-hmm. And it seems like Tyson Chandler, there was a mandate to play him to showcase him, which is hilarious now, but that is probably what was going on. So I think that Igor needs some slack for that stuff, but yeah, just don't play them all together, I guess. All right, let's go on to the MIP award, which is generally the most improved player of the year. We're going to do most improved player of the month so far. Mike, who's your most improved player?
It's got to be Tony Warren Jr.
TJ Buckets.
Yeah, it's got to be.
I mean, I'm not here to disagree with that. I'm one of TJ's more vocal critics, probably. I thought there was no chance he was ever going to get better at any of the things he was bad at because he hadn't shown any propensity to do so. But guess what? He's a lot better of a three-point shooter now, isn't he, Mike?
Well, actually, when you were on the Timeline podcast, I believe I even questioned whether or not it was possible for TJ Warren to be an effective starter on a potential playoff team. And I just doubted it because there was no reason to believe it up to then. First of all, he was a terrible passer. Second of all, last season, he only had 20 three-pointers that he made. So far this season, through 8 games, he has 12 made three-pointers. And last year, through 8 games, he was 2 for 10 for three-pointers, so he only had 2. And after last season, only having 20 made threes, he's on pace for 123 three-pointers this year. It's kind of nuts, and this is the kind of change I think that it's important to point out that this doesn't happen by accident, and that's obvious, but it takes a lot of work for a player to completely revamp the three-point shot over the course of one single offseason, and the amount of work that TJ Warren put into that, it really makes me respect him, and it makes me confident that he'll continue to get better throughout his career and maybe add new things to his game every summer. Now, of course, it remains to be seen. This is all small sample sizes so far, so it remains to be seen that whether or not this is actually going to stay throughout the season, but so far so good.
Yeah, I don't want to demean Warren getting this award, but the main question I have here is there anyone else? We've all chosen him for most improved. I'm not sure there was any other candidates. So
I would say maybe Devin Booker. Maybe Devin Booker would be a candidate. Yeah,
that's interesting. Why don't you tell us your thoughts on Warren and maybe Booker as well there, Max?
I'll focus on Warren because I'm going to get to Booker in a little bit here. TJ Warren. If you're an Igor Kokoshkov stan, like at least one person on this podcast is, maybe two, I think your best evidence of Igor's effect is on TJ, right? Because TJ has clearly bought into what Igor is selling. He actually tries to play within an offense now. And I think I said this on our previous podcast, but TJ has always sort of been the lone mercenary out there just trying to do his own scoring thing, which he was very good at. He's one of the best 2-point range scorers in the league. But now it seems like he's really bought into the fact that, hey, if I'm going to be an effective player who helps my team win, I need to pass the ball sometimes. I need to shoot threes and space the floor. I need to actually consider playing defense sometimes. And I think he's doing all these things now. And that was my only criticism of him before, is that, he always had that scoring ability, but he wasn't doing these other things that he needed to do at least, not even well, just at a not F- level. And I think he's gotten to the place where he's a C- or above in all those things, which is it's key for him. And now he's an effective player. It makes the rest of his game actually enjoyable and fun and helpful. It's just, I could not say enough about how happy I am with how TJ Warren looks.
Yeah, I know it's not going to be this simplistic, but do you remember back to Igor's intro press conference? And I think Warren was maybe the only player in attendance because it was a weird time for players. And there was that photo of Warren and Igor together after the press conference.
David, when I was just saying that, I had that photo literally in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. And, as I said, it's probably not this simple, but I really like to think that he basically, in that 5-minute conversation, said, you need to come back and shoot 3-pointers and share the ball around, or you're not playing for my team. Because that's what he's done. I'm sure he's going to regress a little bit, but he's currently 46% from 3, and as Mike said, on a pretty decent volume, so not a small sample size per game, even though it's a small sample size for the season so far. And his overall assist numbers don't look like a major improvement right now if you look at his kind of totals, but I think that's kind of because his minutes are down. If you kind of scroll down to per 36 stuff, he's more like 2.2 assists a game, and that's almost a full assist up on what we're used to from Warren. So the signs there are great too, and he's playing with effort. As Mike said, if you create a list of players on the team that are currently, bringing that side of things, Warren definitely deserves to be on it. I still rather him as a sixth man, kind of on a good playoff team, as Mike said before, but he 100% deserves to start right now, and I'm glad that Igor made that move.
All right, I think we all agree with that. Next award, the ROY, which is generally the Rookie of the Year, but the problem is Ayton would win that every single time if that was the award. So we're going to do instead, what was our favorite rookie play of the month, or what rookie do we think had the best individual single play? Mike, what's your answer for this?
So it's got to be the 2 times I believe Ayton had back-to-back blocks. Every time that happens, it's well, first off, it's hard to really fully enjoy Ayton for how good that he's been, because so much of the pre-draft focus on Ayton was his defense and his ability to be a rim protector. So every time he makes a defensive play, it makes my heart flutter a little bit. So I really, really enjoy it.
I'm going to cheat a little here, Max. I'm going with Mikal Bridges, and any time he gets a deflection or steal on the court, that length is just fascinating to watch. So if I had to pick one moment, it's actually it probably doesn't count for the October awards here, but the very end of the Raptors game, if people still tuned in or didn't drive home yet from the arena, there was the very end of the game where the Raptors were running down the clock, and Bridges just easily reached in, got the steal off the Raptors point guard, and took the ball down the court for an easy dunk when he probably shouldn't be scoring at the end of the game, but I love it when players do that.
That's a real good one, because I think one of the underrated parts about this draft is that the Suns finally added some people who don't have T-Rex arms, because everybody on their freaking team had T-Rex arms for the past couple of years. And DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges do not have T-Rex arms. And neither does the guy who I'm going to mention. You guys won't be surprised. It's DeAnthony Melton. I retweeted this on Twitter. I think Cole Zwicker is the guy I retweeted, but it was a play. Oh, God, wait, I think it might have been the San Antonio game.
It was. I know the one you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? Where he got screened hard and barely snuck through it. And then the big who screened cut back to the basket for sort of like an easy layup. Which if anybody else on the Suns for the past decade regarding that play would have been an easy dunk. But Melton appropriately realized that that's what the play was and quickly darted into the paint, right in front of the pass lane, stole the ball. It was insane. I haven't seen a Suns player do that in so long. That's what winning teams do. And was it a small play? Yes, but it's just something that I just want to see so much more from this team. So it was my favorite.
Well, it's a small play, but I think it's important to mention for me. I've been very much focused on this. I still don't know what the actual defensive scheme is for those low pick and rolls that we're running, because it seems to be that when Kanan and Ayton are guarding it, Ayton will switch onto the small player on those low pick and rolls, and then Kanan will just watch the big get a pass directly under the rim, and then they'll dunk it. Now, I don't know if Kanan is supposed to immediately switch, or if the guy's supposed to shade off the corner to cover the big, and then Kanan's supposed to run out to defend the corner, because that still hasn't happened. I haven't seen anyone adjust on those pick and rolls except for DeAndre Ayton. So when that play happened and DeAnthony Melton dove in, and he used his strength too. I think it was Pau Gasol that was the man that was rolling. He used his strength to actually push off of him and make space to actually grab that steal. That was a really impressive play, and it's the first time I've seen any sort of defense on low pick and rolls. First off, low pick and rolls aren't great to run normally, but they work really well on the Suns so far. So it was. I know the exact play you're talking about, and I was really impressed too, because that's been a frustrating defensive scheme to watch.
It's a small play, but it's an important one, as you guys have both said, because it exemplifies how good guards and good wings can make your bigs look better. So Ayton probably did the right thing by stepping up there, as you said, Mike, but it's an easy pass for the right point guard if someone like Melton doesn't jump in and take that steal. So having guys like Melton and Bridges on the team around Ayton is actually going to make him look better and make the whole team more solid. I've got here Bridges, for one, is kind of averaging 2.5 steals per 36 minutes and an extra 1.7 deflections in just 17 minutes. So if Bridges ever gets up to playing 30 minutes a game, he's going to be in the top 5 to 10 in the entire NBA for deflections, which you need guys like that on the team, particularly if you're going to play defense the way that Mike just described. We've talked about it a bit, Max. I actually expected that Ayton would kind of use drop coverage a little bit more on those pick and rolls. But if they are having Ayton come up to the guards, you need guys like Melton who are instinctually good defensive players that are going to make plays like that, because that's what's going to stand out. And I just don't know how long it's going to be until either Bridges or Melton are starting on this team, because they're both perfect fits with Booker once they're kind of ready to start, guys.
How about both?
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
I'm in.
Let's move on to the final award, last but not least. It's the Most Valuable Player Award. So it's going to be the Most Valuable Player for October. In my opinion, there's only one answer for this. I think most people think there's probably two choices, but I'm interested to see what you guys think. Mike, who's the MVP?
I'm glad that you said there's only one answer, because I'm not going to give that one. To me, it's DeAndre Ayton, and I will, of course, have my chance to explain why.
I think I'm with you on this one, Max. I have gone Devin Booker.
Yeah, I'm Devin Booker too. So let's start with Mike's explanation for why he thinks it is DeAndre Ayton.
I was thinking about the MVP award and how it works in the overall NBA, and generally in the NBA, the amount you play and the amount of minutes you play and the amount of games you play matter. So the fact that Devin Booker's been out, I know this is kind of a cop-out, because I just wanted to talk about DeAndre Ayton a little bit, but it matters. So for that, I just ruled, well, let's just go over it. Ayton's played 253 minutes so far this season, and Devin Booker's only played 173, so that's 80 more minutes, basically 150% of the minutes that Devin Booker's played. So a pretty big percentage increase on that. He's first in PER, of course. That overrates big men a little bit, but he's first in PER. He's second in points per game. He's first in rebounding, top 10 in the NBA in rebounding. I was going to say second in true shooting percentage behind Chandler, but now he's first because Chandler's gone. So he's bumped up that list a little bit. He also has the highest offensive rating. I know these are all stats that have problems in small sample sizes, but he has the highest offensive rating on our team at 127. And the only players on the team to have a higher defensive rating than him are Mikal Bridges, Tyson Chandler, Rashawn Holmes, Troy Daniels, and DeAnthony Melton. No surprise on any of those guys, but none of them have had anywhere near as big of a role as DeAndre Ayton has had. So, like all 5 of those players combined have played 315 minutes compared to Ayton's 253 minutes. So just as far as how big of a role Ayton's played and how important he's been for the offense so far this season, especially with Devin Booker off the floor, I just felt like he's sort of earned it. And the team, the truth is the team's really bad, so there's not a lot of guys to choose from. So to me, Ayton had to be the guy with Booker's limitations as far as playing.
I don't disagree with anything that Mike said. I think this is actually quite funny, and I thought about it from both of those angles, Mike. Being very nerdy about it, thinking about most valuable player and how it's voted on. Obviously, games and minutes do matter, but so early in the season, I kind of skewed the other way and chose to go, and not everyone votes on the MVP like this, but I just went with the guy who is clearly the most valuable to his team right now. And I think that's Devin Booker. I don't want listeners to come at us, Max, and think we're not giving Ayton his credit where it's due.
Oh, he's clearly the first or second. Like, those are the two.
100%. But just with Booker, he's averaging 26 a game. He's way more efficient, which we've touched on in previous pods, so I won't go there too much. 4.4 rebounds, over 6.5 assists, which is great. Turnovers obviously need to come down, as we've discussed before. But, the Suns were blown out numerous times without Booker. I think all the struggles, everyone else's struggles kind of can be tied to him, and we saw that in the Toronto game with him being back in the lineup. Everyone automatically looks better straight away, and frankly, I just think he is the team, and that's why I think he deserves the MVP for October, Max, even though, as Mike said, he missed a lot of time.
So I agree with a lot of what both of you said. The response I'll have, Mike, to your point, which is correct, that the actual MVP award is generally given to somebody who played a lot. I think the reason for that is because the team he's on usually wins a lot, and he's been contributing to that. Listen, the Suns have won one game, and they won that game because Booker won them the game. And then they've been actually reasonably competitive in one other game, and that was the game where Booker came back. And Booker wasn't particularly good in the game, but there's a clear reason why they were competitive with Toronto. It's because Booker was changing things. They had to pay attention to somebody on the offense for once. And yeah, so Ayton has been awesome. I've been extremely happy with him, particularly offensively. Defensively, he's shown flashes, but listen, he's allowing over 70% at the rim. So defensively, he's been pretty bad. I mean, not to say Booker's been good, but just kind of to mitigate his offensive value a little bit. To me, it really just comes down to the fact that we have one win, and the reason why it's Booker. And some of this also is not just based on what we've seen. It's just based on what I know, and that's I know Booker's the best player in this team. And maybe that's not fair to project forward on this since we're just saying October, but even just October, he's the guy who got us our one win. So that's kind of why I'm giving it to Booker.
And it's totally fair, actually, because if you just look at when they've been on the court, it's clear, not just this season, but if you just look at this season alone, it's clear Devin Booker's the best player on this team, and it's not even close. He's the only one that has a chance to be an all-star maybe in the next few years at all. And he's clearly the best player. I feel like I need to clarify that I do think that Devin Booker is the best player. The only reason that I would pick anybody above him is just for those minutes and the amount of minutes that he's played. I'm looking forward to Devin Booker playing. Now, I do want to ask you guys, do you think Devin Booker is injury prone?
I think it's great that you brought that up. I was just about to tie that in to kind of support your view of picking Ayton, because I think, as we do these every month, it's going to be interesting to see which guy gets nominated or someone else perhaps on a given month. But the reason we may not be picking Booker is because he misses more time again and again, and maybe we get to the end of the season and it's just overwhelming for Ayton because he's been on the court a hell of a lot more. But Max has touched on this a lot more, so I'll give him the floor in terms of Booker's durability.
It's becoming harder and harder to deny, isn't it? Because the guys who are injury prone are the guys who, they suffer these just random injuries constantly to all certain parts of their body. And some people hate even calling players injury prone because it's like you're questioning masculinity or something, but it's really not that at all. It's just some guys are just built differently and their bodies break more for whatever reason, and I hope that's not Devin Booker. The good thing about Devin Booker is he's never suffered like a really bad, serious injury, knock on every piece of wood I've ever seen in my life. But he just suffers these constant little things, and it's like, man, I think a lot of times too, he comes back too early because he's so competitive and he wants to play through things and just aggravates his injuries as a problem. I think they need to control him a little bit more. It seems like they were cautious with this hamstring thing, and he's fine. But yeah, I think it's a really worthy thing to bring up. I'm glad you brought it up, and it's something to monitor. And I hope the team, kind of takes it into consideration going forward when they think about rushing him back.
I think your last point there, Max, is really important. Not to say that they're identical injuries, but Harden and Booker basically had grade 1 hamstrings on the same night, from memory. The teams are in similar situations, both struggling and could do with their star player on the court. Harden is not back yet, and the Rockets have kind of publicly said that they're not going to rush him back because it's more important to have him at the pointy end of the season than right now, and they're not panicking. Whereas, as you said, either Booker or the team, there may have been a little pressure to get back on the court with how bad we are struggling. So definitely something to watch. We don't want to see recurring injuries from Booker rushing back too soon. But, to end this section on a positive, and we've talked so much about defense, and here we've talked about both Ayton and Booker pretty extensively. Can we just talk very quickly about the 30 seconds where Booker made a stop on Kawhi and then Ayton blocked J-Vel in the post, and how important that is that, our two negative defenders are doing things like that occasionally to try and turn the team around.
Yeah, dare I say that was fun to watch?
Yeah, I mean, Devin Booker is he's not without potential to play defense at all. I mean, he's obviously athletic. Look at him play offense. He has size. There's no reason why he just can't be at least okay on defense. So it's nice to see him show that a little bit because, generally he's just never trying, I think. So yeah, that Kawhi play was really encouraging. I'm glad you brought that up, David. Anything else before we move on to Did You Know?
That's it for me.
All right, David, take it away.
Let's do it. Well, Max and Mike, with a whole episode dedicated to awards, it only seemed right to talk about the Phoenix Suns' history with the main NBA awards. We've already covered off past Sixth Man of the Year winners in this segment for Phoenix, so it probably comes as no surprise, but the Suns have never had a Defensive Player of the Year award winner either. So let's start off with a little test. Of the other three major awards we've discussed here, how many can the two of you cover off together? So we'll start with MVP, which began in 55-56, but the Suns obviously didn't enter the league till much later. We've taken it out 3 times. Can you name them? Mike, I'll give you first chance to get all 3.
Well, Steve Nash, twice. Does that count as 2?
It does.
Okay, and Charles Barkley.
There we go.
Man, way to give our guests a softball,
yeah,
man.
I know. I'm a genius.
I never get questions that easy.
We'll throw to you now with, of course, a much harder one, Max. So on to
course.
Rookie of the Year, which apparently started in 53, which is before the MVP, which I haven't actually got to the bottom of that. It makes zero sense to me, but maybe one of the listeners will inform us on that. So that one we've won 3 times also. Any ideas, Max?
Well, I know Amari Stoudemire won it.
That is one. The other 2 are from the 70s, so I'm not going to hurt you too much for not getting any. But
hey, what about Walter Davis? Did he win it?
He is, and there was one just prior to that, who's come up in this section a couple of times, if memory serves me correct.
Has he? Is it either Alvin Adams or Paul Westphal?
You got it first time. 3 for 3. I like it.
How about that?
So finally, Most Improved, guys, which came much later in 85. But the Suns have taken this one out 3 times as well. Mike, I'll go with you first. Can you name any of those? You should know the 3 players. I'll say that much.
Well, Dragic.
That is one.
Right. And that's the only one I can remember, actually.
I think I got the other 2. DL won it with us, right?
Oh,
correct.
Yes.
05-06.
And did Barbosa win one? I know he won 6th man. Did he win Most Improved?
He did not. We're talking a little earlier than that.
Okay. I'm not sure.
It was KJ in 88-89.
Oh, interesting.
So now here's what I'll call a funny fact, more than a fun fact, guys. But the Suns, until very recently, had 3 current players who have taken out awards on the roster. Do either of you want to guess who they might be?
Does Tyson Chandler count as a current player?
He does. So he was the very recently bit. So he got the Defensive Player of the Award in 2012. So there's 2 more. Mike, you got one?
I don't think I do.
Jamal Crawford, we talked about this last week. Only reason why I remember, he won 6 man.
Yep, 3-time winner, 6th man of the year in 2010, 2014, and 2016. I'll give you both a clue here. If you have followed me calling the trio the death lineup for the Suns, the third guy is the third guy in the death lineup.
So he won. Did he win the most improved, or are we talking about 3-point contest or something?
Most improved.
Ryan Anderson, by the way.
It's got to be Ryan Anderson,
yes,
yeah.
It was. Ryan Anderson in 2012. So as I said, all 3 guys were pretty good back when they won the awards, but right now the 3 of them make up the death lineup for the Suns. Chandler now gone. Hopefully less Crawford, which we saw last game, and hopefully that continues to go downwards. And maybe we'll see the similar thing happen with Ryan Anderson, although I'm less sure on that. I think we're going to have to put up with minutes from him going forward. But onto this season's awards and any Suns chances, I think we can safely say that Rookie of the Year might be the only chance the Suns have this year. So the Suns will probably need to start turning things around to get a sniff of any of the other awards, but either way, I think Ayton has a chance to win Rookie of the Year. It usually comes down to the highest points per game, as Max and I have discussed on previous pods, and right now Ayton is behind Young and Doncic in that category, but I think it's going to be tight all year, guys. So have either of you changed your pre-season prediction? I'm not sure. I think you might have gone with Ayton. I think I saw maybe somewhere, Mike. Is that true?
Yeah, I think Ayton. If I had to bet, I would bet that Ayton won the Rookie of the Year. But I think it's not going to be easy. I think Trae Young's been really impressive. Luka Doncic, of course, has been really good. But I think the combination of Ayton's points, rebounds, and efficiency will probably win him that award.
Max, you sticking with Doncic?
I think Doncic is going to win because I think the Mavericks are going to be a better team, and the narrative's already on his side, as some fans like to point out. So yeah, I think he'll win it. But it's going to be a good race. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, so interestingly, thinking back to Ryan Anderson's Most Improved Award, as we discussed from 2012, Dwight Howard was obviously on that team. He didn't win Rookie of the Year in his first year, came third behind Okafor and Ben Gordon, actually, of all people, but he obviously went on to win multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards. However, on that Magic team, both Anderson and Turkoglu both won Most Improved with Dwight Howard. So, you could argue his presence and dominance helped those guys thrive on the team. And, it'll be interesting to see in future whether Ayton can do the same for some of his teammates. But that's it, guys. Max, let's move on to Around the Association. And I'm looking forward to having a bit of fun with this one with some awards of our own.
Yeah, thanks, David. I like the ones where I actually get the answers right for once. All right, so yeah, we're going to get around the league a little bit here. We're each going to pick one positive award and one negative award that we are making up ourselves to assign to one of the teams around the league. So let's start positively here. Mike, what is your positive award?
So both of my positive and negative awards are most fun to watch. So most fun for a good reason and most fun for a bad reason. The most fun for good reason, and I know this isn't a fun answer, but it's got to be the Golden State Warriors, because what I missed about the Golden State Warriors was Steph, and the way that Steph was just kind of wheeling and dealing out on his own, just firing up insane shots over and over and over again. And this might be the best start to any season he has ever had, and they look incredible so far. And even though they're kind of a bulldozer that just rolls over everyone in the league, that shouldn't be that fun to watch, but somehow it is, and all credit goes to Steph on that, because I don't really have that much fun watching. Well, Clay is great, but I don't really have that much fun watching Durant, to be honest. He's an incredible player, but I don't think his game is all that exciting. So credit to Steph and Clay, because that team's been really fun to watch so far.
David?
Yeah, I agree with Mike, obviously, and the Clay ticking time bomb. Some team was going to cop that eventually. I'm just glad it wasn't the Suns, because that was pretty ridiculous against the Chicago Bulls. But I've gone with an East team for my good award, Max, and I have called this the Imagine Still Being This Good While Struggling award, and it goes to the Boston Celtics, who are 6-2 whilst many saying, and rightfully so, that they actually look quite bad, but number one defense in the NBA, which you can kind of rest back on while you're trying to get the offense clicking, which I'm sure they will do. They have a great coach in Brad Stevens. Hayward and Kyrie have both kind of struggled coming back from those injuries and getting integrated with the lineup. Even Tatum hasn't looked great, but imagine being that poor, particularly as a Suns fan, and still sitting at 6-2 in the East, Max.
I couldn't agree more with both of your awards. Both great. Mike, I love that we're getting a Steph Curry Renaissance season. He seems like he wants to win the MVP, which I love. I love when players do stuff like this. Like, titles are important, but it's also a legacy thing to win the MVP, and I'm glad Curry's embracing that and he's going for it. It's great. It makes the game more fun. And David, yeah, I mean, the Celtics are ridiculous. The fact they're struggling in 6-2, that's a great insight. Mine, I'm calling it the Welcome to the Show Award. I'm giving it to the Milwaukee Bucks. I want to welcome them to title contention because that team is a title contender. Bud has completely changed them. Even when Giannis hasn't played, they've looked good. Just because the system's good now, Bledsoe looks better, Middleton kicks ass, and obviously Giannis is a complete freak. I think that team legitimately could make the finals, and who knows, an injury away from winning it. Depends on what Giannis does, but man, I've been so impressed with Milwaukee. I thought they'd be good. They're even better than I thought they were going to be. They are legit one-seed contender, in my opinion.
I think it's funny that when people were talking about Milwaukee, or specifically Giannis, before this season, the whole talk was, man, if he figures out his jump shot or if he starts hitting threes, watch out, they're going to be so good. And what's been interesting about that team so far is that he's terrible at shooting so far. He can't hit any shots outside of the paint, and they're still amazing. He's just one of those guys that defies all logic. He just doesn't need the traditional skills that you would think a guy like that needs in order to make a good team around him. Just surround him with guys that can shoot or at least are willing to shoot. Not all of them have to hit at a really high clip, but they have to be willing to take the shots when they catch the ball. And clearly Bud's got them doing that. But I just think it's hilarious that he just doesn't need it. He doesn't need to shoot. And it's true. If he does add that to his game, I don't know how you defend them at all, but he clearly doesn't need to.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point by you, Max, in terms of them still looking pretty good with Giannis out. That's a great sign for the team going forward. Obviously, they're not going to be contenders if an injury hits Giannis at the wrong time, but them being able to still pick up wins and look quite good without Giannis is important. But Mike, how about you give us your bad team here?
Yes. So also just a point on that to add to it. Would have been nice if we traded that Bucks pick before everyone could tell how good the team is. Or if we would have got it this last season instead of the coming season. That would have been nice too. All right, so my most fun to watch team for bad reasons is, and I don't mean this as an insult to you guys, but it's Dallas, and that's for a couple reasons.
It insults us.
Well, I just know you love Doncic, and that's partially why I like it, because I love watching Doncic so far. But what's been really fun, because ultimately for me, the NBA is an entertainment league, and I watch it for all kinds of reasons. Yes, I watch it for basketball, but I also love the drama surrounding teams. I just think that it's really kind of unique to the NBA how accessible and how much people know about the drama and the weird tensions between players on teams or players on other teams, like the Jimmy Butler situation. And Dallas, it's starting to get... The body language isn't great. I know you guys saw DeAndre Jordan practically tackle Luka Doncic to get that rebound. And there's been a lot of talk by Dallas fans of Dennis Smith Jr. Just freezing Doncic out, or them not giving the ball enough to Doncic. And that sort of drama, that's kind of exciting for me for a couple reasons. First off, it's just fun to judge their body language, because after watching terrible Suns teams for such a long time, I'm basically an expert on that. Like I can see all the bad signs as they happen on the court at all times. And two, maybe they're going to trade Dennis Smith Jr. at some point, and guess who could use a point guard? I'm not sure how great he would be on the Suns, but I think he would be better than any of the players that we have on our team so far as point guards go.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. There's definitely some drama building around that Dallas team, and there's a lot of parallels between that Dallas team and the current Suns team that we've been talking about. You know, both terrible on defense so far, both not getting a hell of a lot out of their veterans, some of which they brought in the offseason. DeAndre Jordan, for one, is kind of a perfect match with Trevor Ariza around taking a 1-year balloon payment and not really living up to it so far. And it's going to be an interesting one to watch. I want to see Doncic thrive.
You know what DeAndre Jordan should do? If you're playing with Luka Doncic and Luka Doncic is getting the rebound, you should run the floor. Like, just run the floor, because Luka Doncic is there's not many players that can effectively find a big man from 90 feet away on a fast break, and you're playing with one of them, and you're one of the best dunkers in the league, don't worry about your rebound stats. Maybe just work a little harder to properly serve your team and play good offense. That's a very frustrating play. I know it's just one play, but clearly he cares a lot about his rebounds, and it's frustrating to watch with a guy like Luka Doncic. There's a benefit if he gets the rebound.
I know if that was DeAndre Ayton, Igor would be chewing him out for not rim running.
Yeah.
As you said, it was a wide open rebound for the guard to get in Doncic and have your big sprint up the floor and create space. So, yeah, I think, again, great choice there with Dallas. My bad team here is Washington, and I'm awarding them the you're desperate to make a move if you're hoping that Dwight Howard's return is going to help you. This one hurts me, Max. The Washington Wizards are 1-7 after I said they will win 50 games this season. I was way off. The John Wall contract's obviously been talked about a little bit in the last couple of days. Phoenix fans are worried that they're the ones that are going to end up with it. I think Miami's another team you could watch this space with, and I've seen a few other people suggest Orlando as well, who basically is running without a proper point guard at the moment. But do they trade Beal or Otto Porter instead? And an interesting one to watch. I think it's another coach firing situation that we probably need to look at as well. I think Scott Brooks might be the next coach to fall if it's not Luke Walton or someone else. And I'm not going to mention our coach's name there.
That's interesting that you bring up Orlando, because I hadn't thought about this, but that's like the only team I think I would be okay with getting John Wall, because they just desperately need a point guard of any kind, like at all. And they have Aaron Gordon to trade, which would be getting rid of a contract. And they're not going to be good anytime soon anyway, so it doesn't really matter for them that contract's going to suck for 4 years. I actually don't hate that for Orlando, weirdly.
So I heard a trade on the Ringer podcast that was Bradley Beal for Josh Hart and Brandon Ingram, which I thought was just a really interesting trade. I just thought of it now as you were talking. What do you guys think of that trade?
I think the Lakers are one team of a good handful that Bill would look really good on. And Bill, to me, is... I
agree.
Yeah, Bill's the kind of player... it's been talked about quite a lot that not every player fits very well with LeBron James, but I think Beal is definitely the type of player that would look very good next to LeBron James. What do you think about that, Max?
I would do that in 1 second if I were the Lakers. I think that Washington would be kind of crazy to do that, but I don't think Ingram's nearly as good as everyone in the league seems to think, so I could see it happening.
Yeah, same.
I think that's a very realistic possibility. I wouldn't do it because I don't think Ingram's that good. So mine's kind of a cheat, because this team's played very well, but I'm still putting it in the bad category, because I'm gonna name this the "She's Way Out of Your League" award, and I'm giving it to the Sacramento Kings, because I love what they've been doing so far. They're like your buddy who's dating this like super good looking girl, but it's not gonna last very long because she's gonna move on, but it's fun while it's happening, and you're really happy for them. That's the Sacramento Kings for me right now. I love what they're doing. De'Aaron Fox it's sensational. I'm a huge Fox fan. I wanted them to take him over Jackson, but I digress. Bielitsa has been a revelation. He's been incredible. Honestly, a borderline all-star. Buddy Hield has been awesome. The team's just so much fun to watch. They're 6-3. They're rolling. I think their next 2 games are against Boston and Toronto, or something like that, or maybe Milwaukee and Toronto. So there might be a reality check coming. The good-looking girl might dump them. But that's my award.
Yeah, the caution with them, Max, is a couple of teams from last year. I think Orlando is one, and Memphis might be the other, who started very similarly, and then obviously we know things got pretty ugly. I don't know whether we're hoping as Suns fans that that's going to happen here, because it's hard to see them doing essentially what we hoped the Suns were going to do to start the year. But yeah, definitely one to watch, and I think a good award to hand out there.
It's a hilarious award too. I love it.
Oh, thank you. So we're going to move to 7 seconds or less. 7 seconds or less is the segment where one of us asks the other and the guest 3 questions for which the other and the guest have 7 seconds or less to respond. This week it's me asking David and Mike 3 questions. You guys ready?
Ready.
Okay, these are a little bit eclectic, so follow me here. So the first one, Duke starts November 6th. That's Tuesday. I can't wait. Super excited. They're playing Kentucky. If you could wave a magic wand and have any player from Duke this year, including Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, Which one would you wave your magic wand, put in the Suns roster right now? Mike, we'll start with you.
Zion, come on. That would be so fun to watch. I have no idea what it would look like, but just any guy. He's Charles Barkley, basically. I mean, you can add a guy that plays like Charles Barkley onto the team. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I think if we're waving a magic wand right now and putting them on the team, it's hard not to pick Zion. I think it's a really intriguing fit and one worth testing and watching. If we're projecting forward around, a guy that the Suns could draft, I'm still on the Reddish train, and probably because that might mean that the Suns finish the year quite well and aren't as depressing and therefore out of the first couple of slots there, Max. Maybe some lottery luck, but I'm a big fan of Reddish.
Fun. We're all three going to have different answers because mine's RJ Barrett.
Yeah, they're all good.
They are all good. I kind of see RJ Barrett as kind of like a do-over for Doncic in a way. Not that it was a bad pick. Not saying that. But he's sort of the same thing. Like with Booker, those two would just be so ridiculous on the perimeter together. And I just want that to happen. I want Booker to have somebody to share the load with, and that's why I do it. Okay, anyway, move on. This one comes from my brother. I think this is kind of interesting. If you could take one player on the Suns roster right now and immediately transform him into the best player ever to play at his position, which player are you transforming?
Oh, wow. Any point guard? Isaiah Cannon, Elie Okobo, DeAnthony Melton, any one of those guys. We need a point guard.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Mike. Keep Booker and Ayton as they are and add a third guy at historical levels and the team would look pretty juicy. But I'd go Ayton because, the most dominant big in the league would transform this team ridiculously. So that would be my pick, Max.
We're all three going to have different answers again. I'm actually going to go Josh Jackson because I think Booker and Ayton are already good. And if you make Josh the best wing in the history of the league, I think this team might be kind of good.
I like it.
So let's do the final one. I said these are eclectic. This is going to be another one that's totally off the radar here. So Rich Kleiman, do you guys know who that is?
Mm-hmm.
It's Kevin Durant's manager guy. I guess he's not really his agent, but like his most trusted confidant. He's been on the Bill Simmons podcast with Durant before, and he said many times that he wants to run a team. He thinks that he could run a team. He'd be great at it. Here's the question, Mike: if you could get Kevin Durant to sign here for a max deal this summer, would you also bring on Rich Kleiman to be the GM, and he has to be the GM the whole time?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. You could fire a GM too at some point, as we've seen. So if it doesn't work out with Rich, at least you have Durant. But yeah, I think that absolutely. It's clear that Sarver makes all the decisions anyway.
Yeah, 2 points for me. I would say you definitely do. One, because it's a players' league at the end of the day, and having a top 5 player in the NBA changes your team dramatically. And as Mike just touched on, there's plenty of people that think that the GM in Phoenix doesn't necessarily mean a lot anyway, so I think that's a sacrifice you would make.
Yeah, that one may have been too easy considering our current management.
He seems like a smart guy too.
Yeah, he does. He comes across well on the podcast. All right, I think that's it for us. Mike, please plug anything you want.
The Timeline. It's called The Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. You can find it through your podcast apps. Listen to us. We do basically a weekly podcast on the Suns. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happens with this team, so there's enough to listen to, enough topics for all of us to cover and talk about. Follow us on Twitter at The Timeline Pod. You can find both of the hosts on there as well.
Yeah, the Suns aren't boring. That is true. Mm-hmm. Well, as for us, I am MaxMCC11 on Twitter. David is at the 4 Point Play on Twitter. Please rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps us out. David, thanks.
Thanks, Max. And yeah, I'll just reiterate, great to have Mike on finally. We've been trying to tee that one up for a little while, and yeah, I can't say it enough. I love what the Timeline does. It's definitely in my regular rotation, and as Mike said, there's a nice little community of Suns building now, and one that we're happy to be a part of, and great to have Mike on, and I'm sure we will have him or Sam on again sometime soon.
Thank you.
Ditto on all that. The Timeline's great. Everyone should listen. Thanks, guys.